Ladies and gentlemen, a very serious thing has happened in US. The US government has shut down. How on earth can the US government shut down? That's very unthinkable, right? But it has happened before and is now happening again, and it has serious implication throughout the whole of the world's stock market because the US economy is now, potentially in question. Let's watch on, shall we? So the US government has shut down. Right. A lot of people will say, Simisai, how can that happen, right? It's a very unusual thing. But this government shutdown thing, so far, in my faint knowledge, I only see US happening. Okay. So let's give it some colors and context. So the US government shutdown has begun. They missed the midnight deadline to come to agreement between the Democrats and Republican. The federal government officially shut down after the Congress failed to reach an agreement, and there is a court dispute over this thing called ACA healthcare Medicaid cuts. So this is the first shutdown since 2019. In 2019, there was a previous shutdown, and that was also in Trump administration. There was a 35-day record-breaking closure, and right now predict that there will be a lot of federal workers, that means government civil servant, to be laid off, and there will be essential services disrupted nationwide. This is not a time that you want to visit the US. So there are now battle lines drawn. Trump's strategy, very clear, is to play hardball. Okay, he now weaponized shutdown as a way to get rid of the Democrat programs, and he's now proposing to lay off a lot of civil servants. They call it federal workers. And by the way, he's not afraid of laying off people. Maybe he actually wanted it. So, and of course, there is the Democratic response. The Democrat Party is standing firm on what they want for the ACA subsidy and reversing the proposed Medicaid. So a lot of finger pointing on both sides, and they are currently right now playing hardball with both sides. So this is really very bad. So for those people who think that we have more, opposition party, you just take a look at what's happening in US right now and see whether Singapore can survive such a kind of, loggerhead. Now, there is massive economic and social impact. So if the ACA tax credit issue don't get resolved, 4 million Americans may lose their healthcare coverage by 2026. And in US, you cannot survive without healthcare coverage, okay? My wife broke her hand and went for ER, which is also our emergency services, in US. Just a scan and just wrapping around 20,000 20,000 US. That's not an operation. The operation costs close to $200,000, right? So in US, you can't survive without medical coverage. There is clearly 20 million more that will face higher costs of increased healthcare, and there's a lot more costs here and there. So there's also a very serious risk of massive layoff, and as a result, with no civil servant operating it, there will be critical service disruption, and of course, all this will result in very heavy political costs to many voters, as well as they are very angry, and there's a midterm election that's coming in 2026, and they will hit hard on the political parties. Now, some of you might ask, why does the US need funding approval, right? Singapore, Malaysia doesn't necessarily need that. Well, it's because the Congress must approve all government spending. This is a requirement, and the funding must go through the legislative process. And if you don't get approval, the government operations will run out of funds. And as a result, there will be agency shut down. There will be civil servant being retrenched, and services will get disrupted. So this is a very unique situation in US, and it's not looking good. So some key terms that you want to be aware of is there is affordable care cut, also known as Obamacare, and of which basically the Democrats want subsidies to be extended, where the Republicans under Donald Trump don't want it. No, I think Trump is more correct than wrong in this, because the US government simply cannot afford it. And there is a Republican Party, which is GOP, Grand Old Party. There is a small, they want less spending. So They clearly want lower taxes and spending cuts, and they want to be more conservative, more in their fiscal spending. I think they are actually right in this kind of setting, but the US government is just addicted to aggressive spending. So what's happening right now? Well, we crossed the midnight already, so the government expired. The Democrats has blocked the Republican votes, 55 votes. They need 60, and as a result, there's a shutdown right now, and they have already executed a shutdown plan. So this will be the first shutdown in 7 years, and 750,000 federal workers be temporarily put out of action for now, and I don't know when they'll come back. The last one was 35 days. So the market reaction to the shutdown risk right now is not looking good. The market is down at this point of time of recording by probably about almost 0.5% on NASDAQ and S&P 500. And I think there could be more risk. I don't think it'll be a massive crash, but I think the market will react, because I think the market reaction will be this thing too will go away, right? Eventually they'll come to some kind of agreement. So let's take a look at history. Whenever there's a shutdown historically, the market will fall because there's uncertainty, and then there'll be erratic trading, and volatility will spike. And after then they'll come to a reconciliation, a resolution, and then there will be a relief rally. So this happened in US. So in US 2018 to 2019, when there's a shutdown, the S&P 500 fell about 2.7% and rebounded after the resolution. So I think that this time around, it's hard to predict what the reaction may be. I think the reaction may not be so severe. But that said, it's hard to say because right now we have high interest rate and fragile growth. But, this is the US. Now, the stock market will have some reaction because there's a lot of government contractors. They have direct revenue impact. And there's a lot of defense contractors as well, and their contract likely to be delayed and maybe some payment issue. Some infrastructure project, construction project, we've heard. Healthcare, clearly will be also affected. So right now, I think stock market and consumer confidence will be shaken. So be prepared for some volatility. I don't think in the long run there will be an issue, but in the short run, there certainly will be some reaction. Now, the US dollar will come under some pressure. So do brace for impact, because the governance of US now come under uncertainty. And on top of that, there's an interest rate fall risk as well. I think there will be a flight to safety to Japanese yen, Swiss francs, and so on. If this shutdown prolong, right, beyond 38 days to 68 days, 98 days, then I think we will have a serious issue. Right now, I don't think so, but if it prolongs to some insane time, then I think there will be a bad impact on the financial market. So right now, there is some flight to safety for short-term reaction to the Treasury market. But if this shutdown is going to be long, then people lose faith in US Treasury. So then there will be doubts on the credibility of the US Treasury. So could there be an economic impact? For sure. So, remember, the GDP of a country is made up of C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Consumer plus investment plus government plus export minus import. So the G part now is affected. Clearly, the whole economy will be affected. And some of the G is interlinked with the I and the C, okay? So consumer, investment, all this will be impacted if there's a prolonged shutdown. So let's see how long this thing will last. But knowing Trump, he's a person who doesn't fear shutting down government, and he thinks that there is overspending in the US government. So I think he will take this opportunity to do some cleanup as well. So do expect quite some volatility in this whole episode. Now, if there is a spread of this risk now in an extended environment or extended time period, then it could actually hit the rest of the world, because our exports, a lot goes into US, especially in Singapore, chips and pharmaceutical. There will be some impact there. Currency clearly will have some pressure, and supply chain, all this may get affected. Singapore and Malaysia particularly is vulnerable to US demand shift. So I do expect some brace of impact. The key thing is this: how long and how short this impact will be. There are three possible scenarios. Scenario one is there's a short shutdown period, 1 to 2 weeks, then that's not too big a deal. But if the prolonged shutdown were to happen more than 1 month, then I think GDP will have an impact. And clearly the volatility will continue in a very negative way. Credit rating will be at risk. Now, if at this juncture they could quickly turn it around and have a relief within a day or two, then I think that's not too big a deal. So let me remind everybody, expect volatility in a negative direction. Equities will swing wildly, and maybe even the Treasury yields as well. So this is also a point where you want to make sure your dry powder is armed and ready, and potentially, if the market were to crash in a significant way, you can consider doing some reaction to it. Okay, but I think at this juncture, this is unlikely to be a massive event. So the lesson for us as market watchers and participants is this: politics, especially in the US, do drive financial market. So fiscal policy directly will affect your investment. I think it's important for us to diversify across country, across assets, and stay disciplined. Don't overreact to all this news. I think it is okay in the long run. So you just got to sail through all the short run volatility. So what to watch out for, right? So right now, let's see the deadline has already been crossed. The shutdown has happened. Now let's see what will happen over the next few days and see whether they could have a quick turnaround. If not, then be prepared for bigger volatility. This is interesting, and I wouldn't use so exciting, but probably anxious time for some of us. But it's good to note that this is not the first time this has happened. So maybe history were to repeat again, then it's not that big a damage. Let's watch on, shall we? So remember, hit subscribe, and if you have any comments or question, put it in the comments below, and I'll see you very soon again. Thank you and goodbye.